Hello world, Dano here, stacking paper as always, and today we are reviewing A Study in Scarlet, the first Sherlock Holmes novel ever published. This came out in, 1887? Yeah, this shit's old, but honestly, it holds up remarkably well, considering the time frame. Like, I thought it would be a little bit of a harder read, but the English is really straightforward. It's actually not that far off from like English we'd use in modern day. So that was like really surprising and like kind of a breath of fresh air. I will say if I had to rate this though, I think I'd give it, I don't think it's quite an 8. Like I don't think it's fantastic. Maybe like a 7.5, 7. Mostly because of how the book is set up. So I'll start spoiler free. Essentially this just introduces you to like all the telltale characters in the Sherlock Holmes averse. You got Watson, his first meeting with Sherlock. You got Lestrade and Gregson, the two, mainly Lestrade is like the big regular detective, so to speak, because Sherlock Holmes actually isn't a detective. Well, he is, but he's not a regular detective. He's a consulting detective, which essentially means that he helps the regular detectives when they can't fucking figure it out. So he's just like a low-key detective, and because of this, he usually doesn't get any recognition for his work. But he doesn't care. He just does it. Holmes is in it for the love of the game, which is really cool. And like I think that the strongest part of this is just the Holmes Watson dynamic, because this is like their first time meeting. They're really just roommates, and Holmes kind of just convinces Watson to just go along with him, and Watson gets so wrapped up in the whole detective drama that he just gets hooked, right? There's a really good scene where Watson is reading this article where it's talking about the powers of deduction and how through just basic deduction you can figure out anything about someone. And Watson's reading it and he's like, this is a bunch of hogwash. Like, this is some bullshit. Like, Holmes, why do you read this stuff? And then Holmes goes, I wrote that. And Watson's like, this is ridiculous. But as the story goes on, he's forced to admit that Holmes is right, because Holmes is just, he's on another level when it comes to deduction. His level of analysis is crazy. And Doyle does a really good job of kind of bringing all these like disparate threads and details together to, give you a satisfying conclusion on how Holmes figures it out. And that stuff is really awesome. I think he's kind of unparalleled in that regard, because here's the thing. This might be the first Sherlock Holmes novel I've read, but I've read a bunch of the short stories. I have I have all the collections, because it's public domain. Like, anyone could read this shit, which is so sick. I think the short stories are better so far, at least, than this first novel. And now I'll get into spoilers. The reason I'm not a huge fan of this is because it's broken up into 2 parts, which honestly, I will say it seems pretty ahead of the curve for the time to have like this time jump, because there's like a jump to the past. So there's a part 1, there's a murder. 2 people actually get murdered, and Holmes is trying to figure out who did it. And then by the end of part 1, he slams these handcuffs on this cab driver, and he says, "You're the guy that did it." And everyone is like, I say everyone, me, the readers, are like, what the fuck? How did he come to this conclusion? And then all of a sudden it goes part 2, and the story just completely shifts. It shifts to America. It's like frontier America, 1840s. This father and daughter are dying in the desert, and they get rescued by some Mormons. Like, this is like the early Mormon church. And it kind of just completely switches genres. It's more now about this father and daughter who get adopted into this Mormon settlement and are forced to be Mormons. And his daughter grows up to be this beautiful woman. But if you know anything about Mormons, they love their multiple wives. So they essentially confront the father and say, like, hey, man, you got a beautiful daughter. She's got to marry some of these guys. Like, but the daughter is low-key in love with some Gentile, some random, like, miner from the West. And the father already knows, like, he doesn't want to raise her in this psycho Mormon society because, dude, they start doing some crazy shit. Like, it turns into, like, a thriller. So they basically approach him and say, hey, you have 30 days to choose who your daughter's going to marry, or there's going to be retribution. And there's obviously, like, there's rumors about what happens to people that defy these Mormons because they've kind of formed their own insular society where they run everything. It's just like, it's very much like The Village type shit. And it's really cool and creepy. It just feels like a completely different story, and literally half the novel is devoted to this story. Essentially what happens is they try to run away with this guy. The father, they get tracked down. The father gets murdered. They take Lucy back, and within like a month, she kills herself or dies to illness because she's so stressed out. And this guy, this Gentile that she was supposed to marry, he's like, fuck these two guys. I'm gonna chase them to the ends of the earth to kill them to get, retribution. And of course, he chases them through the States all the way back to Europe to London, and then these are the two guys that get killed. And so this cab driver that is this guy, Holmes catches him, and then this guy literally says, yeah, it was me. Also, I'm going to die any second. Like, he has an aortic, I forget what's wrong with him. Something wrong with his heart, or it's like an aneurysm where, like, it could burst at any moment. And then that's where he regales the entire story to Watson and Holmes and all the guys there. And it's cool. I just think he spends a little too much time on this, frontier Mormon plot that explains this guy's story. And it's a cool story. It's just, it's not really a Sherlock Holmes story. It's just kind of this really drawn out flashback. And I guess that's my only real issue with it, is he takes a little too long with it. I think it's really cool and it gives you a lot of perspective. It just doesn't feel like a Holmes story, because it really isn't. It's like frontier America, story. And then, so yeah, they catch the guy, but then he literally has an aneurysm. Like, he doesn't care. He's like, I don't care if I go to jail. I don't think I'm a murderer. I'm serving the law just like you guys are, type shit. And it's good though. Like, I think that, like, for a first novel, it's pretty solid. It's a good introduction to the characters. I just want to see where he goes with this in the further novels. The short stories are actually incredible. I really should be devoting a chunk of my channel to short stories in general, because there's a lot of science fiction short stories that I think are incredible that no one's read. But yeah, for a first outing, it's a solid novel. It's super worth the read. Like, these novels are so short because they were published in like a magazine, the Strand magazine, most of them at least. So, the word count it's really tight, which just adds to it for me. I think, like, there's really no reason why people shouldn't be reading these, because, they're public domain, anyone can read them, and they're fast paced, they're cool as shit. Like, yeah. So I'll stick with a solid 7.5 on this one. But I know that they're gonna get better. I can tell the Hounds of Baskervilles is probably gonna be crazy. So yeah, I'll definitely be getting to most of these because I actually read these at work because my manager has essentially told me that if I'm caught up on all my work, he doesn't care if I read as long as it's on the computer. So I just go on like Project Gutenberg. It's a database of a bunch of ebooks, and I just read whatever. So now that all the Sherlock stuff is on there, I'm just gonna be crushing these. So yeah, fully worth the read, and I'm excited for the further novels to see how he develops this Sherlock character and deduction mystery. But anyways, till next time.